So this is the series where AWBW take you guys through games starting at the very beginner level at 700 rating, all the way up to the best players in the world. So here, as always, we start at the 700 rating, and I thought that I would start with Fog this time, since I think we typically do standard for the standard or hyphens for the first game, but decided to mix it up and show you guys some Fog. Hopefully, learn a little bit of Fog fundamentals and sort of like look at how people are playing them at the beginner level, and then sort of like see how we can improve off of them. Okay, so both of these players, the Choco Snipe, I checked earlier, is about 100 games. Fullest is actually only 11 and 8, so um, less than 20 games under their belt. So I think the other reason that I was drawn to this game is because it's a Grim mirror, and you guys know how much I love Grim, so this will be fun. Just some good old fashioned Grim mirror stuff. So I guess yeah, we can just get right into it and see what we see. I have not really looked at this. All I know is the game ending state. So yeah, okay. Looks like we have some pretty normal moves so far. Okay. So I think like a minor bone to pick would be, I think I would prefer to capture north so that you start a capture chain into like all these properties at once at this first infantry. But going this way is okay too, I guess. It's just not my preference. Speaking of things that are not my preference, so Choco Snipe here has actually decided to avoid capturing this base with his first 2 infantry out of this base. So this base is very delayed. Classic mistake that we see with beginners is like sort of ignoring the neutral bases that are on the map that should belong to them, but they don't yet. Yeah, so for I think we talk about this every 700 match, which is every 700 match where at least there's a issue capturing bases, which is that the earlier you capture your base, the more units that you get in the long term, as well as it accelerates how fast you capture properties. Like especially these two properties, you probably don't get until you have your base. So by delaying all this income, it eventually racks up to be like a pretty expensive choice if you go ahead and do the math after you see both options. So full is here. Yeah, on the other hand, did go for this base right away. And maybe actually one thing we can do this time around is we can take a look at the funding difference. So how this should typically go in a game is that in the opening at least is that whenever it's your turn, you should start your turn with a little bit less money and then end your turn with a little bit more money on average. Sometimes you end even, but you shouldn't start your turn. You shouldn't end your turn with less money. That's kind of lets us know that there was kind of a mistake in how things went. So this infantry actually is going to go towards the base now. So the base is going to look to be 3 turns delayed. Okay, so ending even, which is not great. Blue ending ahead by 1k. Actually, let's just really quickly click through and just look at the difference. So, so it was even at the end of gray's turn. Now it's ahead for blue, behind for gray. We don't want to see that. Now it's ahead for blue, ahead for gray. What, behind? What happened? Okay, I'm confused now. The thing that I said should happen didn't happen. Ahead for gray, and it didn't? Oh, okay. I don't think the properties are updating because Blue definitely captured two cities and the income didn't go up. Okay, never mind. Okay, let's just scrap that because the replay system is being buggy. So okay, I think we're about here. We can talk about the vehicle builds now. Bolas has decided not to build a vehicle yet. Choco Snipe went recon, followed up by tank. Recon is nice because of the roads get you going pretty fast. However, there are mountains that you could put infantry in anyways, so the recon feels just a little bit redundant. Followed up by tank is solid because then the recon can get a little more frisky and the tank can follow up if anything decides to bother the recon. Okay, then vehicles for blue. Recon from the center base. If the recon is like right in this area here, I think it would be solid. Getting like there's a fair amount of vision it can take by standing here. And then the tank over here happens to respond to the tank on the other side. Okay, another tank on the other side. We can start talking about. So one of the things that I think fog players especially are big proponents of these days, at least many of them, is having sort of a strong side where you build a lot of vehicles versus a weak side where you're not as much invested in vehicles. You can sort of play it across the board if you want to, but it sort of loses out. On average, you like lose a bit of tempo to somebody who does push hard on one side, unless you can sort of um, attack and like scout out where the strong side is and then attack the weak side. So a little more advanced, but the sort of strong side, weak side idea is kind of like a simple way to play the game if you're starting out. Okay, so tank from the middle base, following up the recon, so the recon's protected. These two infantry are pretty deep, and actually it's mirrored on the other side, so far we haven't seen anything too crazy. Okay, I think the recon only taking one tile forward is a little bit passive. I think it could have gone in this forest pretty easily. Um, I mean, it basically sees that all of this area actually. It sees this one infantry down here and sees two neutral properties. So that might be enough to convince yourself that this forest is empty. But I guess it's okay to play conservatively too if you're a little unsure if this forest is occupied or not. Okay, and then blue on the other hand goes very far forward with the recon. Does not get spotted going into this forest, so it's gonna probably be able to sit there pretty comfortably for a turn or two, sort of scouting out everything. Okay, so the recon gets scouted out here. The infantry moves forward, and um, actually, it's probably a good reason for the recon to go one tile down instead of into this forest here, because if the turn order is different and the infantry scouts out the forest before this tank moves, then the tank could attack from the city, and in the Grimir, that's almost certainly a one-hit KO. So yeah, actually, my idea with putting the recon more aggressively would have not worked at all. Okay, so now Chaco snipe to move. Okay, interestingly enough, the recon kills the infantry there. Um, if it knew everything about the positioning of the units, it kind of makes sense. I guess you would know that this forest is empty. So unless Fullest has another vehicle that can reach the recon from outside of its vision and then hit with the tank, this recon is actually protected by the forest completely. Okay, so this recon gets called out, and it's scouted out by the infantry and then punished by the tank. Um, okay, and then the B copter here is making its way to center, and I guess there's like a preemptive anti-air here. Well, you could answer B copter to B copter with Grim if you wanted to. It's just like really volatile. Whoever gets first strike gets the one hit KO. So blue getting really risky and trying to steal the comm tower here. As we can see from the lack of, as we can see, like, by seeing through the fog, it's actually not a good idea. There's a lot of stuff around to hit it. It is really deep. It kind of doesn't belong to blue. Um, well, I guess, I don't know. Maybe you want to just try for it and see if it works at this level and see if you get lucky. Because Grim with two towers versus Grim has got to be pretty preposterous. Yeah, like it's a 9-2 tank shot on planes. That's pretty crazy. So the one thing though, this tank is pretty much not protected by anything else. Um, so it is a little bit out in the open. Although this tank would have to do something, either like really take a ballsy move and like go through this forest that you don't know if it's where you don't know if it's occupied or not, because it doesn't reach the top. So defensively, this is actually pretty strong from blue. I think it's pretty good. Okay. Oh, I see. The infantry checks the forest first, and then these 700s are really good. It's a lot better than what we normally see. So yeah, the infantry checks the forest first, gets the attack off, and the tank attacks. Yeah, this is really good. And there's the tank to finish a kill, and then no tank. This tank is not in range of this other tank, so well, kind of risky move in case this tank was a little bit further forward. For instance, if the tank would have gone to the left instead of the right, the blue tank would have been able to counterattack and really win this area. But as it stands, this tank is safe, so a risky play that's going to work out. So yeah, blue here has to find a move to stay active. Okay, and this tank is really fearless too. It just dives in there and kills the recon. Um, yeah, I guess it is supported by a second tank. But yeah, if there's a tank here that kind of ruins the idea. Okay, triple tank build from Gray Sky here. Um, yeah, I mean, tank is a great unit for the Grim Mirror just because it kills about everything if it gets first strike. So it has great movement as well. Yeah, like this tank just one shot another tank on a road. That is preposterous. And it just one shot an anti air too. Oh my gosh. So much damage. That tank just one shot a 2 HP tank. Or the infantry shot one shot out 2 HP tank. Okay, this anti-air move feels a little risky. It's kind of out in the open, and if there was a tank hidden in this woods, be able to run around and you know, basically one shot the anti-air and then freeing up the copter to move out. So um, yeah, a little risky for the anti-air to my taste, but it's a grim mirror, so you can kind of, if the ultra aggression works, then it really works. Okay, here comes CO power. So now everything's going to do preposterous amounts of damage. Yeah, look at that damage. Did 8 to an infantry on a city. Okay, that'll kill. Okay, I think I would have preferred to see that infantry go into the mountain to kill, just because it gets you vision along the way. Okay, and that B-copter actually going way to the side, I'm not a big fan of. Although there is this anti-air here, the B-copter doesn't have to go that far away if it wants to escape to the right. Otherwise, kind of like moving to the center with it, moving like to that tile is also safe. So it could be in a more centralized, more useful location without having to run completely away. Okay, and here's the power back. And yeah, I actually overheard it, or I guess it's not technically hearing, but I saw another conversation about the Grim Mirror and how like the only power you need to use is CO power, which makes a lot of sense to me because super CO power does so much damage that it's like it's the amount of extra damage you do is not really useful because you're already one-shotting everything. Okay, so tons of damage coming out here. Gray Sky is looking pretty bad. Not too much in the way of remaining units that can do damage, and actually getting vision of these units is going to be challenging too. So really difficult to try to make a comeback at this point. Just got a little bit too far forward and ate a really big, like, did a knuckle buster, but it didn't quite do enough damage to really win the game immediately. Blue also denying this comm tower long term is a pretty nice pickup. I like this move by Blue, not overextending and instead consolidating in this middle, very heavily fortified forest area where you can just kind of like sit safely and then kind of see where everything is and then pick an area to attack. Okay, so pretty big attack by Gray here, doing a fair amount of vehicle damage, but unfortunately both B copters about to die, and yeah, we'll see what happens beyond that. Oh yeah, and there's a knuckle buster coming too, so yeah, that was probably like a 200 and something damage attack. Oh, and then the B copter even gets involved as well. And this tank from the far left sort of sweeps in. This is a good thing about this is the whole thing about consolidating here, where like you have like a strong central area and then a lot of tanks on the perimeter that can sort of swoop in. Um, like both of these vehicles from way out here were able to be activated and one-shot vehicles this turn, which was really huge. And now there's basically nothing left for Gray Sky, so think this is pretty much GG here. Well, here's a super, so we'll see what that does. So a one shot that it would have gotten anyways. Okay, and resign. Okay. Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, I think that with when you're dealing with Grim in Fog, with especially in the mirror, um, you can't really afford to overextend in the wrong place, or else everything dies and you just lose. So I think that we just saw like a hopeful CO power that didn't work out, and then everything crapped back, and that was at that point the game was essentially lost. And then in the following turns, all the unit value went down. Cool. All right, so that was the 700. Stay tuned for the 800 next week.